The US government has recently revealed new intelligence that suggests Russia is developing a space-based weapon that could pose a threat to international security. The Kremlin has denied the allegations, calling them a malicious fabrication and a pretext for the US to increase its military spending and pressure its allies. According to a source briefed on the matter, the new intelligence relates to Russian attempts to create a nuclear-powered device that could be launched into orbit and used to attack satellites or other targets in space. The source said the device does not pose an urgent threat to the US, but could have serious implications for the stability of the outer space environment and the global order. The US has shared the information with its Congress and some European allies, hoping to raise awareness and support for countering the Russian threat. The US has also urged Russia to abide by the existing treaties and norms that regulate the peaceful use of outer space and prohibit the deployment of weapons of mass destruction in orbit. However, the Kremlin has dismissed the US warning as a malicious fabrication and a trick by the White House aimed at getting more money from Congress and influencing its allies. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said he would not comment on the details of the reports until they are officially released by the US, but he accused Washington of trying to encourage Congress to vote on a bill to allocate money, which he said is obvious. The revelation comes amid heightened tensions between Russia and the West over Ukraine, where Russia has launched a military invasion that has sparked international condemnation and sanctions. Both sides have warned of the risk of a direct conflict between NATO and Russia, which could escalate into a nuclear war. Russia and the US, by far the biggest nuclear powers, have both expressed regret about the steady disintegration of arms control treaties that sought to slow the Cold War arms race and reduce the risk of nuclear war. The US casts China as its biggest competitor and Russia as its biggest nation-state threat, while US President Joe Biden argues that this century will be defined by an existential contest between democracies and autocracies. Russia says the post-Cold War dominance of the US is crumbling and that Washington has for years sown chaos across the planet while ignoring the interests of other powers. The issue of nuclear capability in space is not new, as both countries have experimented with various concepts in the past. In 1962, the US detonated a nuclear bomb in space as part of Operation Starfish Prime, creating an artificial radiation belt that damaged several satellites. In 1988, Russia tested a nuclear-powered satellite called Cosmos 1900, which malfunctioned and leaked radioactive debris into orbit. The current international law governing outer space is based on the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which bans placing nuclear weapons or any other weapons of mass destruction in orbit or on celestial bodies. It also declares that outer space is free for exploration and use by all states, but subject to international law and cooperation. However, the treaty does not explicitly prohibit other types of weapons or military activities in space, leaving room for interpretation and ambiguity. As space becomes more crowded and contested, there is a growing need for more clarity and transparency on what constitutes peaceful and responsible behavior in orbit. The US, Russia, China, and other countries have been engaged in various diplomatic initiatives to address this issue, such as the UN Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space and the. However, these efforts have been hampered by political disagreements and mistrust. Both Moscow and Washington have warned about the possibility of a battle between NATO and Russia. NATO leaders are closely monitoring the situation. While the immediate threat may be minimal, any escalation in space could reverberate across the globe. NATO-Russia relations remain tense, and this development adds another layer of complexity. As tensions rise, the world watches. The US and Russia, once Cold War adversaries, now navigate a precarious dance in the cosmos. The latest US warning about Russian nuclear capability in space adds another layer of complexity and urgency to this challenge. It remains to be seen how Russia will respond to the US accusations and whether they will lead to more dialogue or confrontation between the two rivals. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments and be sure to take a moment to subscribe.